It is an all-new episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. This is where you get your news and notes about the Northern Region sports. Big upsets around all the Northern Region tournaments. In the Liberty District, the Madison girls soccer team already pulls off the big upset, and they are going to their second consecutive Liberty District tournament after they dispatch of Stonebridge, a big team from Ashburn. We'll get into all that in just a moment as I bring in our knucklehead experts. But before we get to all that, of course, it's CCI Screen Printing, one of our special teammates, guys, at 703-978-0257, and of course on the web at cciscreenprinting.com. I want to thank Triple Edge Lacrosse, one of our stellar teammates, at www.tripleedgelax.com, your endless summer of lacrosse. Of course, we're on the web. You can find Triple Edge Lacrosse rankings and more for both boys and girls sports audio and now video. Check out our new FSN Fast Breaks at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Well, guys, it's been an incredible week of sports in the Northern Region. Finally got that rain out of the way, and we're getting some of these tournament games in. And, of course, before we get to some of those games, Dave Buchenfeld, big story for you this week. Matt McCaig over at Robinson headed to Verina.
Yes, indeed. Matt McCaig, for 3 years, has been the boys basketball coach over at Robinson. He cited personal reasons for his family for leaving that job. He's actually taking over as head coach of Verina, as BJ said, high school down in Richmond. Those of you who remember, Chantilly played them in the state tournament for football a couple years ago on their way to the state final. But after 3 seasons, he is leaving Robinson.
Yeah, it's a program that needs to be kind of shown the way, if you will. A losing season last year, the Blue Devils, similar to what he did over at Robinson, really breathed life into that program. Back-to-back Northern Region tournament berths for McCaig and the Rams, so he will surely be missed. Speaking of big jobs and big hires, Chrissy Kelly, former Mason coach, takes over at South County. That's a big scoop for the South County Stallions girls basketball program.
It's an amazing hire. Chrissy Kelly, who is an assistant at the George Mason University for the girls basketball program, previously coached at Forest Park, winning 2 AAA state titles in 2004 and 2006. They won the AAA Cardinal District 4 times, 4-time Coach of the Year, 2-time State Coach of the Year. It's a huge hire for the Stallions.
Absolutely. That is a program that had a lot of talent over the last couple of years, and we'll see if now with some new coaching, if they're able to really push to the next level in a great district, in the Patriot District. Chrissy Kelly, a huge scoop for the Northern Region, and I know she's one that a lot of Northern Region coaches have really spoken very highly of. Of course, Oakton coach Fred Priester has always mentioned Chrissy Kelly as one of the top coaches in not just the state but in the country. And when you get that kind of backing and you've been to the college level, it certainly says a lot about what the Stallions have ahead of them. Now, speaking of ahead of us, we've got a lot to cover tonight. We're going to start with girls soccer, and then Earl Brewer, Langley lacrosse coach, is going to join us to talk about the big win for the Saxons. Before we get to all that, one more news and note we want to jump into before we get into this Liberty District girls soccer. Eric Gilmore, some big happenings over at T.C. Williams.
Yeah, Kerry Donnelly will step down as Director of Student Activities. That will be effective in July. He's going to run for a General Assembly seat, or is rumored to be running for a General Assembly seat that will be vacant in 2009, former mayor of Alexandria. So some early possible candidates to take over that job would be possibly Martin Grimm, the current DSA over at Edison, also Bob Eisenhower, who's an assistant principal at Minnie Howard, the 9th grade center, and also Bob Evanson, who's an assistant DSA currently at T.C. Williams.
All right, so we've got some basketball movement after 9 hires last year. Just one boys basketball coach lets go of his spot. Another big hiring, about 3 or 4 big jobs. Madison girls' job is a big one to watch out for as well. And Kerry Donnelly leaving a vacant seat behind at T.C. Williams. We'll see who will be the front runners for those. Eric Gilmore is going to keep us posted. You can check all these guys' news and notes and web stories at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. And you can find this bracket. That's right, let's get to it now. The Liberty District girls soccer bracket, also available at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. And we already mentioned it, Madison, the girls soccer program, off to another upsetting run through the postseason. They beat Stonebridge, one of the top-ranked teams in the area. They were ranked in the state as well in the top 10. So Stonebridge, they lose in the semifinals. Madison, Grace Rosales in goal, pitches a shutout tonight, a 2-0 victory for Coach Kurt Kuykendall, and that's a huge one as they did the same thing last year. They're playing in their second consecutive Liberty District final. We'll see who will be the winner between Woodson and McLean. That's a big game as well. McLean gave Woodson some trouble early in the year. They tied, and we'll see who comes out the victor. That's a game that we'll watch. You can check out more about Liberty District girls soccer on one of our FSN Fast Breaks at fairfaxsportsnetwork.paul. But Paul Frummel, how do you see this district breaking down?
Well, Madison's always a team that kind of hangs towards the top, doesn't get all the press that Woodson or Stonebridge might do, but they always seem to be there in the end. That's Kurt Kuykendall, doing what he does best, coaching them up. And right now, they're primed to maybe win a district title.
Yep, tonight was their big victory over Stonebridge. They played a different style of soccer, and they get the big upset. Dave Bushenfeld, Woodson has been a fantastic program this year as well. That's a program really to watch out for, and Nikki Mercier as well. If Woodson is able to pull off the victory against McLean tonight, as we mentioned, a youthful, good team in McLean, how do you see the final shaping up?
Well, with Stonebridge out of the picture, Woodson's definitely the favorite over there right now. They're 11-1-2 on the season, 11-0-1 in their last 12 games. Only had that one tie against the McLean team that they're facing in the semifinals. That actually happened the night that we had Coach Sharon Anderlot on the program a couple weeks back. But you mentioned Nikki Mercier, the Player of the Year in the Liberty District, Lindsay Otavio. They have so many offensive weapons up top, a lot of speed. I think that they're going to be too much for McLean to handle. And they already beat Madison pretty handily, I believe 5-1 in the regular season. So they're definitely the favorite in the Liberty District right now.
All right, that is your soccer update for girls. Let's jump into the boys soccer, Dave, and you do some great work in the Concord district, and talk a little bit about this Herndon team. Got a first round bye, and they'll play Fairfax. That's a team that's hot, but Westfield might be able to catch them in the final.
Well, there's three teams, Herndon, Westfield, and Robinson. Any one of those three could win the district or the region on any given night. Westfield lost to Herndon and Robinson. Their only two district losses during the regular season. They lost 2-1 to Robinson and lost 1-0, I believe, to Herndon, or no, 3-2 to Herndon in the regular season. Herndon should beat Fairfax pretty easily in the semifinals, and they'll have a tough time against whoever comes out of that Westfield-Robinson matchup on the other side of the bracket.
Absolutely. Herndon, a program that got new life with Sean Murnane transferring from Westfield. After some troubles there, he's got a new life ahead of him, if you will, with the Hornets. And boy, they're off and running. New coach over there under Sean Lanigan, used to coach the Hornets. You can read all about the anatomy of that Herndon Hornets season so far at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. A great story by one of our writers, Justin Creech, who really did some good background research on the Hornets, how they were able to get to the place that they are at now. And boy, this is a squad that's really got a good shot, Paul, in the postseason.
Well, definitely, and I agree with Dave when he said that he believes that it could be either Westfield, Herndon, or Robinson. Any one of those three are very worthy of winning that title. I like Westfield right now. Notice they did lose to Robinson and Herndon, as Dave said, but those were close games, and I believe that high-powered Westfield offense really could get them over the top to get them that Concord District title.
Yeah, Paul and I both saw Westfield play against Centerville the other night in the 3-0 win, and after the game, they all seemed pretty confident that they could beat Robinson. They lost 2-1 in that game, but the lights were going out over at Robinson. There was like a half-hour delay during the game, so they feel like as long as the lights stay on and they play their game, that they can pull off the win against the Rams.
A.J. Shedda told us that he believes that they have to play exactly how they played against Robinson the first time. He doesn't think they have to change a thing. He thinks they can beat them.
All right, we'll see if that's able to happen. Guys, before we jump out of boys soccer, any other sleepers in any other districts when you're looking around? You were a little surprised to see T.C. Williams, the top seed in the Patriot district. That's a pretty good program. They might have a shot in the Northern Region tournament.
Yeah, they definitely are a surprise, to me at least, to be the #1 seed over in the Patriot district. Then you look at the Liberty district, you got the defending state champions in Jefferson still hanging around. Stonebridge, who's undefeated in district play. They were 6-0-1 in the Liberty district this year, 13-0-1 overall. Either of those two teams could end up winning the region as well.
And T.C. Williams, this is a team that struggled there at the beginning of the season. Go and actually finish, I think, undefeated. They definitely did finish undefeated in the Patriot District, the #1 seed. Martin Nickley's been there quite a while, a veteran coach, but at the same time, not a veteran team. This team is loaded full of juniors, have very few seniors, only 6. And so this is a team that could threaten, though they haven't won a region title in quite some time.
Before we get to your favorite Triple Edge boys lacrosse segment, let's show you who the players of the years are for each district for girls soccer. And when you start with girls soccer, really you start with Woodson in the Liberty District. Nikki Mercier comes back from a tough knee injury in the beginning of the year and has scored more than 10 goals and dished out a lot of assists. And you look at the National District, Leslie Fashfar over at Mount Vernon really gets that Player of the Year spot over Lindsay Wilcox, a forward over at Yorktown, as well as Connie Axiotis, two good girl soccer players over there. And so that says something about Leslie and her abilities as well. You look in the Concord District, and it is no surprise, Catherine Yount, and I would not be surprised to see her name as the Northern Region Player of the Year, as that is soon to be decided. In the Patriot District, Tina Brem came on strong at the end of the year with a lot of saves, and boy, they got a shutout victory over, rather 3-1 victory over Lake Braddock. Did Lee. That really put Lee on the map. Tina Brem, the goalkeeper over there. And Brittany Klipstein, they are going to share the Patriot District Player of the Year crown. Klipstein, really the midfielder there for the Spartans that makes everything happen for that team. They really go through her for everything, Dave.
Yeah, but one last note, jumping back to the boys soccer in the Liberty District. If Stonebridge and Jefferson end up meeting in the final, which will probably happen, the two teams battled to a 0-0 tie during the regular season, the one blemish on Stonebridge's record, so that could be an epic game.
And jumping back into the Patriot District Players of the Year, Brittany Klippenstein, you mentioned that the team absolutely goes through her. Kelly Mastronato, talking to her about midseason, just ranted and raved about how good Brittany Klippenstein is and how much she means to the team. She may not score and do a lot in terms of statistics, but this is an absolute pivotal player, one of the best that Kelly Mastronato's had, and she's had some good ones.
Headed to Lynchburg College next year to play soccer, and her running mate, Amalia Clayton, really a player to watch up and coming in the Northern Region, a junior now, and I assume she'll have a great senior season. That is your FSN soccer update. If you want more, go online to fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. You'll see Dave and myself discussing the same soccer update with little tweaks here and there about who we think are the front runners in the Northern Region at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Let's jump into the Triple Edge Boys Lacrosse segment. That's what all you knuckleheads tune in for every single week. And of course, when you talk Triple Edge Lacrosse, guys, you're talking about the Northern Region Tournament, which is in full swing right now. Here's the bracket. Let's jump right into it. Paul Frummel, Annandale on a tear.
Yeah, beating Jefferson, getting there into the the quarterfinals, and you have Robinson beating Yorktown, Oakton over Mount Vernon, and Langley beating West Springfield. So 4 great teams there in the quarterfinals.
Talking about Langley, in just a moment, we're going to have Coach Earl Brewer of the Saxons joining us on the FSN hotline. He is a coach who is on cloud 9 right now after claiming the first district title for the Saxons since 2003. That's a great program. They've always seemed to fall a little bit short. In just a moment, Earl's going to join us to talk a little bit about what they've got ahead. And boy, they get a tough draw, no breaks for them as they catch Oakton in the Northern Region Tournament. Dave Buchenfeld, let's jump into the other part of this bracket as we continue with the Northern Region Tournament.
Yep, the National District's #1 seed Falls Church went down to Westfield by a score of 14-2. Madison pulled an upset in the rankings there, but not in our rankings for Triple Edge Lacrosse. They knocked off Lake Braddock 16-11. Woodson and South County, you can see right there, they're not playing until tonight, so we won't know who will face Chantilly, who was a big winner over Washington Lee, 18-5. The Concord District's 4 teams knocked off all 4 National District teams by a combined 59-18 in the first round of the Northern Region Tournament.
Wow. And you look at that Northern Region Tournament and you see that there's some great teams to watch. And of course, Westfield, Madison, and Chantilly, the other side of the bracket. Langley and Oakton facing off. And to talk about that game and the success of the Saxons that they've had recently claiming their district title is Coach Earl Brewer of the Saxons. Coach, are you with us?
I'm here, BJ. How are you?
Coach, good to have you. Congratulations on the big victory. But I'm looking at the bracket, and boy, he didn't get any breaks for winning the district title going to take on Oakton in the next round.
No, not at all, BJ. They're a tough squad. They play in the tough Concord district, and we're going to have our hands full tomorrow night.
All right, Coach, let's go a little backwards first before we go forwards. Let's talk about the big win and what you guys were able to do throughout this season, playing in a difficult Liberty district as we approach soon the Northern Region Tournament. How is that really going to pay off for you when you've played against the Madisons and the Woodsons and so forth? How will that experience carry you through the rest of the postseason?
Well, you know, I think, BJ, too, early on in the season, we played a tough schedule. We played 3 Maryland teams, Wooton, Westminster, and Broadneck. We won 2 of those 3 games, and that really helped. You know, we won an overtime game down in Broadneck. We won 10-9 down there against a very tough team. We beat Westminster out of Carroll County, Maryland, who won their county championship. And we lost a really close 1-goal game to Wooton, who arguably the best, one of the best high school public schools in the state of Maryland right now. And I think they're 11 11 or 12-1 right now, and that one loss of theirs came to a private school. So playing a tough schedule early, BJ, has really helped us down the line here.
Now, Coach, the Liberty District sometimes takes a back seat in terms of exposure to the Concord District. We have the big teams such as Robinson, Oakton, and Westfield. But being the best team in the Liberty District this year, do you feel like you guys have been able to kind of fly under the radar as this Northern Region tournament starts and giving yourself a bit of a chance to surprise some teams?
Well, I think the coaches out there that are smart guys like Coach Braddock at Chantilly and Coach Gray, and Justin Fitzgerald over at Robinson, they know who the best teams are and the better teams are. So I don't think at this point of the season anybody's flying under the radar. I do think that you're right about the Liberty, though. Madison, I scouted Madison a couple weeks ago when they played Oakton, and they really they had a great game against them. They're two tough districts. I guess with four really great teams in the Concord, they may be one up on us right now.
Coach, kind of to follow up on that question, with the year that the Liberty District has had, do you see that both districts, the Liberty and the Concord, kind of on an even playing field now?
Well, I think we're pretty close. I mean, Chantilly's been a step above everybody this year, but Woodson played them tough. Woodson played them to a 9-6 game early in the season. But they've kind of rolled through. Chantilly's kind of rolled through their district. They've had some tough games, but they've beaten everybody that stepped up to the plate against them. So, I guess right now you'd say it's Chantilly and everybody else is trying to get them.
Coach, why is there such a disparity in the Concord and the Liberty teams versus the rest of the teams? The Patriot will probably go 1-3. A National went completely over. Why is the disparity so heavily bent towards both the Liberty and the Concord with respect to those other teams?
I guess there's a lot of things involved in that. And, you see that the programs that have been successful over the years have had great feeder programs, and there's always been a lot of constants too with the coaching staffs. It's been the same guys there year in, year out. If you look at Coach Fitz at Woodson, Coach Fitzgerald at Robinson, guys that have been around a while, Coach Gray, these guys have been around a while. They've established their programs. These schools are coming, though. Annandale's had a wonderful year. Bill McCliskey's done a great job over there with that program. West Springfield, we played last night. They really had some talented players on their team. So, some of these programs are just a couple years away, I think, from year in, year out being competitive and being able to compete with the more established teams.
Coach, looking back to last Friday against Woodson in the district final, big win over them. You were without three of your best players, though, stemming from an altercation against Madison in the semifinals. Three of them were suspended. Just talk about that and the team's ability to overcome that and still get the big win on Friday.
Well, I told them the day before that it could either be a rallying point for them, that we could all come together, or it could be another excuse, why Woodson beats us again in the district tournament. And the kids took that to heart, and I think I told them it was a great life lesson that, one guy does never make up a team, and that we had guys that could step in and do a job, and they really did. We had some guys, Ryan Ningard, our junior attackman, had 3 goals. Alex Devlin, our other junior midfielder, he's one of those, you're talking about flying under the radar. A lot of people don't know who this guy is, and he's really become one of the best midfielders in Fairfax County, and he's just doing a great job for us. And a lot of guys played great that night. And I give my coaching staff a lot of credit. They had these guys prepared, the guys that came in and did a great job, and it was a great win for us.
Earl, I want to thank you for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Good luck tomorrow night against Oakton.
Always a pleasure, BJ. Thanks a lot.
Man. Bye.
Take care.
Hey, Coach, thanks.
All right, so bottom line, they finally beat Woodson in the Liberty District Tournament. They solidify that by beating a good West Springfield team, a team that's been ranked all year. Corey McCrae, Stephen Vu, a great program over there at West Springfield. They had a good year, as did Annandale. Watch out for them in the tournament. But it's good to see that the Saxons are finally able to get that district tournament. And now they're going to have their hands full against Oakton. You and I got a chance to see Oakton this year. That's not a bad squad as we go back into this bracket. These brackets, of course, available at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com.
Well, most definitely, you see that Langley right there, and it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a great game to watch, and I think Langley may have the edge. When you look at the upcoming Northern Region coaches poll presented by Triple Edge Lacrosse, you can see that most coaches believe that Langley's the second-best team right now.
Yeah, when you look at Oakton, though, even though they lost to Chantilly in the district final in the Concord, they learned a lot about themselves at the end of that game. They were down 9-3, could have rolled over and died, but they scored 4 big goals down the stretch in the fourth quarter, and they found out that when they go 100% and pull out all the stops, that they can beat anybody, and I think that's going to help them running through the region tournament as well.
A lot of these first-round games weren't close. One of the few games that were relatively close was Lake Braddock. Lake Braddock goes and loses in sudden death overtime in that Patriot District tournament with about 30 seconds to go. Annandale ends up tying the game, and then to go and really lay an egg in the first round, kind of disappointing end after they had won, I believe, 10 in a row.
All right, let's jump right into these Triple Edge boys lacrosse rankings. Of course, you can find these every week at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Guys, right up the top, Chantilly, Earl Brewer, the second-rated coach there. Underneath Chantilly said, it's Chantilly and everyone else.
It's no question, 14-0 for Chantilly. Concord District Championships, first time they've won the district championship in team history, sitting up there at number 1 as they've been all season long. Langley jumps up to number 2 after knocking off Woodson, and third is Concord District runner-up Oakton, not Annandale, even though that they are also a district champion, but they seem to get no love in this bracket.
Look at number 2 right there, mentioning Langley. They're only 3 points behind the undefeated Chargers. That's how much respect that the Saxons are getting this year after winning the Liberty District. You see one of their fellow Liberty District teams, Madison, there at number 4. And then you have Westfield and Robinson, 2 of the big 3 from the Concord, rounding out the top 6.
All right, and then you see the 7th place tie there between Annandale and Woodson. Boy, what a year for Annandale. At 13-2, what do they got to do to get a little higher in the rankings? And I think that says something about pedigree and coaches believing in a program. And look, Annandale has had such a great year, only 2 losses on the season, and having a great Northern Region tournament. Of course, these rankings come out at the beginning of the week, so we'll update them with Northern Region tournament stuff by next week on the website. But you see Annandale there right above Woodson in that 7th place tie, and I think if you had to rank them, you would do it that way. Lake Braddock right there, boy, what a tough road for them at the end of the season. And West Springfield finishing off our rankings with Corey McRae and Stephen Vu. They fall to the mighty Langley Saxons on a tear. That says a lot about that program. I mean, look, if there's anyone you're going to lose to, why not the second-ranked team right now in the Triple Edge boys lacrosse rankings? Guys, when you talk about these ranked teams, we often are lost upon who are some of the best players. Let's talk about some of the best players in the Northern Region, and for that, we'll bring in our Northern Region tournament team graphic. Of course, it's the all-Northern Region boys team. You can find this at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Brian Bayless, let's get it kick-started with the attack. First team attack from South County. Matt Johnson from Annandale, he really helped those Adams off to a great year. Boy, Ross Fernandez can do anything he wants to. Hadn't played lacrosse before high school and jumps into goal and is a first-team all-region selection last year, and now changes over to attack, and he's a first-team all-region attackman. That says something about his abilities. A.J. Sobolski has helped Madison have a banner year, and Tyler Ott on attack, one of those little guys that really charges up those Chargers and gets them going, and they're really going to look to him to continue to have a successful postseason. Paul, take it away on the midfield.
Yeah, and A.J. Sobolski, just one quick note, he's the most prolific goal scorer in Madison history, so that says something. Ian Mills and Jake Nolan, a big reason that Chantilly is undefeated this year, both midfielders for the Chargers. Paul Gasky from Woodson, Dylan Brothers from Yorktown, Stephen Kowalski from Jefferson, and Owen Masters, I mentioned by Coach Brewer, right there for the Saxons.
You mentioned Dylan Brothers of Yorktown. Go to fairfaxsportsnetwork.com to read a great in-depth feature about how brothers got involved with lacrosse. Dave Bushenfeld is the first-team defense, and speaking of defense, boy, that's a pretty tough name up there, that hog, to start it off, isn't it?
Dylan Grimm from Oakton. Oakton had one of the toughest defenses to crack all year in the Northern Region. Then you got 2 Saxons from Langley, Brett Burnett and Patrick Pembroke. The entire Langley defense and goalkeeper was first-team All-Liberty District as well. Then you look at Mike Quigg. Obviously, a lot of people know him as a linebacker for Chantilly, but he does a good job for the lacrosse team as well. And Mount Vernon, Danny Conlon was a great defender.
All right, the hog reference is because his dad's rough scrim, all right? Take it away, Paul.
And obviously, the 2 first-team goalies, no surprise. They get Derek Kegeris from Chantilly and Ross Ladden from Westfield.
Take a guess as to who is the coach of the year.
KB.
Okay, Kevin Broderick. Look, we gave it away. Kevin Broderick at Chantilly, no surprise. What a season they've had. A banner year for the Chargers. They take the Concord District. Most people expect them to win the state championship. They got to win a region title first, or they hope to with Jake Nolan, one of the best players in the Northern Region. But Kevin Broderick does a heck of a job.
Season of first for Chantilly. First time in a district final. First time winning a district title. hey, why not first time winning a region title?
You know who it's not a first for?
D. Stu?
Dennis Stewart, that's right. He was the man of the year last year, and now he's the assistant coach of the year. This man does just about everything when it comes to lacrosse. On a serious note, Dennis Stewart, one of the finest men in Northern Region lacrosse, really does a lot for the kids and really makes the sport go, if you will. Sportsmanship goes to Marshall. Good for the Statesmen, keeping up their sportsmanship ways, and you know, that's a tough thing to do. They're a program that often keeps a positive attitude. We talked about what's the difference in some of these programs and disparities in feeder programs. They don't have that kind of thing set up, but they always go out there and compete. Bill Blaustein over at Langley is the Northern Region Man of the Year. If you want to see this list in its entirety, go to fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. And if you want to see the same thing for Girls Triple Edge Lacrosse Report, come on back for more. On the other side of this break, it's Monica Moore. This Triple Edge Girls Lacrosse Report every week. Monica Moore of the Fairfax Sports Network joins us to drop some knowledge about the girls' Northern Region lacrosse scene. And boy, it's been a heated up tournament already. Monica Moore, let's jump right into this bracket. As we see, the girls are off to a running start. You mentioned Stonebridge as one of the teams to watch. Chantilly, of course, one of those other teams to watch. How do you see this bracket really breaking down when you take it from top to bottom?
Well, a lot of the games, of course, postponed from last night till tonight, so we're still awaiting results from some of the rounds. But certainly one huge upset last night. You can see it right there up on the bracket. Madison defeats Annandale 11-10. And for those regular viewers who watch this show every week, you'll remember back to our spring preview when one of my 3 storylines to watch was whether Madison or McLean might surprise some people in the Northern Region. Sure enough, Madison last night surprised some people in the region, defeating Annandale, the Patriot District champions. All right, but again, other games underway tonight. We'll be moving into the second round on Thursday night. But since not much has happened so far in the Northern Region tournament, let's talk about what happened in the district tournament finals last Thursday and Friday night, because there were some amazing games that were in the region. And first, you have to start with the Concord district tournament final, because there was an upset there. Robinson facing off against Chantilly, and Robinson comes up with the upset 14-13 on a buzzer beater. Megan Dunleavy scores off a pass from Allie Kimmelman. That was one of her 6 goals on the night at the buzzer. And a big story there, because Megan Dunleavy sprained her ankle in practice on Wednesday night. They didn't even know if she was going to play, and then she came up huge. Certainly Coach Allison Nunn was glad that Dunleavy was there. That is their first championship since the 2005 season. She got helped out by several teammates. Sarah Moody had 3 goals. Allison Moody had 2 goals. Certainly a disappointing loss for Chantilly, but they played very well, and their superstars stepped up for them again. Brittany Grill had 4 goals. Christina Patton and Katie Stillwell both had 3 goals in the Concord District Tournament Final. Chantilly will be facing off against the winner of Stonebridge and Lake Braddock, which is happening tonight.
You mentioned that Stonebridge-Lake Braddock game. That is an interesting game because both teams have a lot of history. Stonebridge, not so much, but they're building it, if you will. Lake Braddock, one of those teams that has so much history, if you will, at least on the boys' side. And the girls' team also has a good feeder program. If you want to check out Monica Moore's FSN Fast Break, go to fairfaxsportsnetwork.com, where she walks you through Stonebridge's possibilities of winning the Northern Region Championship. And Monica, you mentioned Liberty District, Northern Region, Concord District, all these district tournaments. Stonebridge had a pretty big win as well.
They did, and BJ, when you talked about history, you hit the nail on the head, because there is a young lady over at Stonebridge that seems to make history every single night. Stonebridge squared off against Woodson in the Liberty District Final on Friday night, winning 14-11. And the story was Lauren Giusti, the sophomore. She set a single game scoring record for Stonebridge. She scored 8 goals on the night. And as if that wasn't impressive enough, it was her own record that she broke. Just 2 nights earlier against Madison, she had scored 7 goals. So 15 goals in about 48 hours isn't half bad. She's got 66 goals on the season so far, which is a season record for Stonebridge, breaking her older sister Missy Giusti's record over at Stonebridge. And the season not over for the Bulldogs, so Lauren Giusti could make a little more history for the Stonebridge Bulldogs. And her teammate Amy Rollins, 3 goals, 1 assist against Woodson, so that was a great effort from her.
You mentioned the Bulldogs, Giusti. You got a chance to catch up with her, and you can see that Q&A. Monica Moore's Q&A at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Now, Monica, you take these Liberty District, Concord District champs. That's usually where the Northern Region final shapes up, if you will. So let's jump back into that bracket and see the chances that these Bulldogs have when you see the side of the bracket that they've fallen on. Of course, they've got to win tonight against Lake Braddock, but they get no breaks for winning the district title. They got to take on a Chantilly squad that's got to be well, frankly, pissed that they lost against Robinson in that final on a last-second goal.
That's absolutely right. And don't discount that Lake Braddock team. They're led by Meg Gerald, their senior. It's a young team, but Gerald and a lot of the Lake Braddock Bruins playing really well, so that's a tough matchup for Stonebridge. And then, of course, squaring off against Chantilly will be a really tough matchup. That's going to be a great game. That may be one of the best games in the tournament. But moving on, let's talk about the Patriot District Final, Annandale versus West Springfield. West Springfield dominated most of that game. They dominated possession, ground balls, shots. The score was tied 10-10, and talk about another winner in the last few seconds. With 43 seconds to go, Allie Weiser scored the winning goal for Annandale. That was her 4th goal on the night. She had a huge night, as well as their freshman goalkeeper, Emma Barker. She made a name for herself in that Patriot District Final against West Springfield. During the second half, I think West Springfield had 6 or 7 point-blank opportunities, and she saved most of them. So Emma Barker is a name you're going to hear a lot about in the Northern region for years to come. Finally, closing out the National District Tournament Final, that was Yorktown against Falls Church. Yorktown wins that one 9-6, a tough loss for Falls Church, but they have a player over there, Valerie Gibbons, who has had a sensational season. She's had 47 goals and 27 assists, which sets a record for total points scored in a season for Falls Church. That program's been around for 9 years, so that is a huge honor for Valerie Gibbons over at Falls Church.
All right, you talk about records and honors, and of course, we talk about those every week here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Thanks for tuning in to this Triple Edge Girls Lacrosse segment with Monica Moore. Monica, why don't you give us a rundown of these rankings, the Triple Edge Girls Lacrosse rankings, which, of course, can be found at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com.
Well, at this stage of the game during the season, we have a new leader. Of course, Robinson is going to be on top after defeating Chantilly in the Concord District Finals. That was a huge win from them. But Chantilly just dropped to number 2, and Stonebridge finally making some movement. I've been pleading for them all season, and they are up in the number 3 spot, getting the respect that they deserve on the coaches' poll. Oakton, Woodson, Westfield. Then you see Annandale, again, suffering that really tough loss to Madison last night. Langley, West Springfield, and closing out South County, again, that very strong South County team.
And of course, these rankings can be found again at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. And you know what else you can find at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com? Monica Moore's debut on Fast Break, where she talks about the possibility of Stonebridge bringing home a Northern Region title. Monica Moore, as always, thank you for your knowledge. Get more at fsn.com. On the other side of this break, it's the boys coming back. We're talking baseball and softball, and the Oakton Cougars win a state championship. Find out when you come back. Love that. 1-877 Love to Learn. That's great, because you tune in here every week to learn about Northern Region sports. Doesn't that work so well, guys, to bring us into this baseball segment on the Fairfax Sports Report? Thanks for coming back. I'm BJ Kubarulis alongside of Paul Frummel of the Connection Newspapers and Eric Gilmore, also of the Connection Newspapers. On the end, it's old faithful Dave Buchenfeld from the Fairfax County Times. Paul Frummel, why don't you walk us through the Liberty District? When you look at the Liberty District, this has often produced one of the top teams coming out into the region tournament, and you seem to think that Madison's got a good shot to take this.
Well, Madison, as you see, they're going to face the winner of Langley versus Marshall. They had a tough year, no doubt. They've been one of the, if not the top teams in the Northern region for almost a decade now, winning 5 out of 7 district titles, five district titles in 7 years. So obviously they're a team that everybody looks at. Had a tough year, lost to South Lakes, lost to McLean, lost to Marshall, lost to Stonebridge, lost to WT Woodson. So they certainly had quite a bit of losses. But one thing you have to notice is they also beat all those teams as well. They did not get swept by a single team in the Liberty District this year. Probably going to face Stonebridge. Stonebridge awaiting the winner of McLean versus Woodson, and this is would be a rematch of last year's Liberty District baseball final.
Some of those games going on right now, McLean and Woodson, Marshall and Langley, they'll see who will take on the 1 and 2 seeds. But let's go back a little bit, rewind here. South Lakes and Marshall. Marshall takes that one. We don't want to let South Lakes get too far away from us without mentioning Liberty District catcher of the year, I guess you could call him, Scott Reed. This is a guy that hit .491 for South Lakes and helped that team to a 7-2 upset over the number 2 seed. So South Lakes goes out in the first round, but don't want to let that team get away without mentioning the strong arm in Scott Reed.
Well, that's very impressive about Scott Reed. Is he's always been known for his defense, throwing out the base stealers, but he said before this season that he was really focusing on his bat. and it seemed like it came through for him this year.
That's the highest average in the Liberty District this year.
All right, you look at some of those other teams on the docket there in the bracket. Who are some impressive teams to you, Paul, other than, of course, Stonebridge, who many believe to be the front runner? Patrick Thompson, the quarterback over for the Bulldogs, won a state championship. He might win a Liberty District championship as well, and many think Stonebridge could be pegged to go deep into the postseason.
Well, Stonebridge had far and away the best player in the Liberty District this year. Actually, it was the co-player of the year, Johnny Blydell. Just his stats were far and away better than anybody, except for average, of course, with Scott Reed. But his stats were just incredible. He was one of the many outstanding players for Stonebridge this year. They earned the #1 seed. They got the #1 seed, and they definitely deserve to have that seed.
Well, Stonebridge is going to be a little nervous seeing McLean there, possibly facing them in the semifinals. McLean, along with Madison, were the only two teams to beat Stonebridge this year in Liberty District play. They beat them 4-1 back on April 18th. So Stonebridge is probably pulling for Woodson to pull through in that one. Woodson and McLean split their season series during the regular season, each winning on their home field. McLean 8-3 and Woodson 5-1.
Getting back to Madison real quick, they're probably pulling for Langley to beat Marshall, because Langley was one of the few teams that Madison did sweep during the regular season, winning both those games. So being able to face Langley for a third time, that would be great for Madison. And also, speaking of Madison, they had 4 outstanding players. You talk about all the seniors they lost this year, but Kyle McIntyre, Casey Turner, Brig Tyson all had double-digit RBIs and batted over 400. Of course, Jesse Jeter, always the ace for the Warhawks, taking over for Jason Farley. He's done a fantastic job.
Kind of an up and down season for the Warhawks. Many people had them written off, but here they are taking the #2 seed in the Liberty District. That's a tough district to play in. You've got teams like McLean that make it hard for everyone to win. Woodson's always been a good team. Langley's a traditional power as well. They've always had some good pitching. Foster Dunnigan with a heck of a season over there, and well coached with Jeff Farrell. But here comes Madison, back to the #2 seed, got a first-round bye, and here they are. They could be playing for another district title.
And also, when you look at this Liberty District, you mentioned Woodson. They have the other co-player of the year in Jacob Morley, and it was Jacob Morley's bat that beat Madison when Woodson played them. So this district does seem to be wide open, and we all have our opinions, Stonebridge, Madison, but really it's hard to tell.
I wouldn't count out Langley, though. They got some big bats in that lineup. They swept Marshall during the regular season, so we're going to go ahead and pencil them into that semifinal game against the Warhawks. First time those two teams played, Madison won 10-0. Second time they played, it was only 5-4. So I think Langley could pull off, I guess, what would be considered an upset, since they are the #3 seed and Madison's the #2. But I wouldn't be surprised if they knocked off the Warhawks in the semifinals to go on to play Stonebridge.
Joey Zarella, a guy to mention before you mention him. I want to mention Chris Sievers for Langley, hit .417 this year, Paul. But Joey Zarella really has been a strong arm for the Saxons.
First team all-district pitcher for the Saxons is 5-1 with a ERA sitting there around 3. So you put him out in a big game, and he'll get it done for you.
One final look at the Liberty District bracket before we head on. But Dave Buschenfeld, as you wrap this up for us in the Liberty District, what say you?
Well, when you look at Madison, this is what they live for. It's all about the championships. You remember back when they got throttled by Oakton in the beginning of the season, Pudge said, this loss hurts, but it's just the regular season, non-district game. We're all about winning the championships in the postseason, and it looks like they're really turning it on at the right time.
Well, and that was just an ego-crushing loss to Oakton, losing 12-3. And this season's definitely been a trial by fire. They had a 3-game losing streak within the district. I don't think Pudge has ever had that happen to him. So, looking at what's going on, and these teams, they were young, inexperienced. But you know what? The regular season's over. They have that experience, and Pudge is obviously a great coach, so we'll see what happens.
Don't write off McLean. If you remember my fast break from last week, I thought the Highlanders had a shot to win it. This week, though, Paul Frummel in the FSN Fast Break predicts the Liberty District baseball winner. You'll have to go to FairfaxSportsNetwork.com to see what Paul Frummel chose. Paul, a little hint as to who you think might win the Liberty District title? Well done. Thank you for imitating animals. Moving on, and speaking of animals, it's the Cougars in the Concord District. They are the team to watch there. Thank you, Paul. Can you roar for us now, too, for a Cougar? That's great. Paul, Dave
I can do a bulldog.
Dave, I don't know if Dave can do any animals, but he's going to walk us through the Concord District baseball bracket.
Oh, man, I don't know what a wildcat sounds like. I guess it's some kind of roar, but they beat Fairfax in the playing game last night in the Concord District. They go on to face Westfield. Wow. Westfield beat Centerville twice during the regular season, so look for them to win that game again. The 4-5 game up at the top, Robinson playing against Herndon. Robinson won the first game against the Hornets. The Hornets beat them 6-5 the second time around, but they're playing for the right to play Oakton, who we all feel is going to be right there at the end of this. Should be Westfield against Chantilly in one semifinal. Both of those teams knocked off Oakton one time during the regular season, so they have a shot to knock off the Cougars in the final if they make it that far. And you got to remember, Oakton was favored last year in the district as well, but then they went and lost to Robinson in the Concord district final last season, so nothing is a given with this Oakton team.
And you can see with the top three teams, Chantilly, Westfield, and Oakton, the top three teams all year, there's a reason. You look at the players of the pitchers of the year in the Concord district. Brett Williams from Oakton, Pat Summers from Chantilly, Tommy Fenyak from Westfield. All three are top flight pitchers, and they are a big reason that those teams are in the position to go to the championship
Well,
game.
you talk about Tommy Fenyak there. Not a lot of people had known about him before this season, but he went out and pitched the great game against Oakton when they knocked off the Cougars at the beginning of the season. So he really made a name for himself with that big game performance.
Pat Summers on the mound for the Chargers with 60 strikeouts. Baseball, such a numbers-driven game, so I want to mention some numbers to the viewers at home so they can get a good idea on how good these kids are. Playing in one of the toughest districts in the state, they put up some huge numbers. Some of these guys on this first-team All-Concord district, which you can find at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com, hit really well this year. Let's mention some of the top hitters. Matt Snyder, first baseman for Westfield, hits .440. Then you go to Mike Snyder over at Westfield. He hits .418. .415 for Keith Werman over at Oakton, and .460 for Kevin Wager, a utility player. All those guys had over 500 on base percentages. So, I mean, those are some huge numbers, and they're not doing that against rinky-dink teams. They're doing this against some of the best teams in not just the northern region, but in the state.
And we mentioned the Snyder brothers that makes Westfield tick. Not only do they bat for average, they bat for power. They combine for 19 home runs. Let's say it again, 19 home runs this year. That's amazing.
Well, you know what they say, chicks dig the long ball.
Love it. Coach Scott Rowland over at Oakton is the Coach of the Year. For those of you that tune in often to the Fairfax Sports Report, you'll know that he was one of our FSN hotline call-in guests, and he talked all about the Cougars' chances, and they've got a lot of players that aren't on this list, first team All-Concord District, that are Division I players. So that will really say something about the amount of talent they have over there at Oakton. You look, guys, around at the rest of this bracket. Let's jump back into it before we jump into some of these other districts. But, of course, you've got Oakton right there waiting for the winner between Robinson and Herndon. Don't write off the Hornets. The Hornets are a team that are scrappy. They can certainly get it done. Centerville and Westfield. Westfield, you know, don't want to overhype them too much because their rival Centerville, yeah, a young squad. We'll see what happens between those two squads. But Chantilly with Patrick Summers on the mound in the all the way through the postseason as he works into the rotation, going in with 60 strikeouts. Boy, that's an arm that might mow some more people down.
I just want to make a quick correction when we're talking about average. We're actually talking about on-base percentage, which some believe is a more important stat than average.
Right. We mentioned, they're hitting over 400 each of these guys, and their on-base percentage, all of them over 500 for some of those guys. Such a stat-driven game. You can find those stats at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Devour them for yourselves. These are some of the top players in the northern region. As we look, guys, into the rest of the northern region, Eric Gilmore, I want to pick your brain a little bit about some of the Patriot and National District teams that might make a ruckus in the postseason.
Well, National District team, it's only going to be one team to watch, and that's Yorktown, who went undefeated throughout the National District. Actually played the two semifinal games last night. Washington Lee won handily, won 21-3, and then Mount Vernon also got a win as well. So Yorktown is going to be the premier team. But we were bantered around about the Patriot District, and I think we all went with South County. I'm officially jumping off the South County bandwagon, actually jumping on the West Springfield bandwagon right now with your boy Mike Kent, Paul.
My boy Bryn Renner, who I had getting drafted last week. He's a junior.
At the same point, but any number of I think three teams. TC we thought was on the cusp. They go and lose embarrassing games actually on senior night to Annandale. Also lost 3-2 last week. Late last week to West Potomac. But I think it could be any one of the three teams right now. I have West Springfield.
Well, it's actually, there's really no doubt, it's Lake Braddock. They haven't lost since about 1982. I mean, they just continue to win. Their bats are hot. Their pitching is great. Lake Braddock has the inside track.
Interesting. 26-year winning streak. Is that what it is? Do I do my math right?
It's about that, yeah.
Dave Buschenfeld, let's look around at some of these other teams. Sleepers, if you will. We're in district right now, but as we approach the region tournament, what are some other teams that might make some noise?
I don't know if you can consider them sleepers. We just talked a lot about them, but I think either Westfield or Chantilly, they could definitely knock off Oakton, and if they got their pitchers going, we've talked a lot about the pitching in the Concord district, they have the arms that they can make a run deep into the region tournament as well.
Lake Braddock, you mentioned, Paul, one of those teams. I want to delve more into that. They are certainly on a winning streak, but this is a team that is scrappy, and they're in the top of the Patriot. They could get it done.
And we also mentioned this is a team that lost their ace. They lost Shane Halley at the beginning of the year. He's getting back in it, working with some defense in the outfield, doing some DHing. So, and this is a team that fought through that adversity. And right now, seriously, they do not want to lose, and they aren't losing.
I just want to talk a little bracketology with you here with the baseball. Can't
Dave
decide
Lenardi.
whether I like it or not the way the baseball brackets work. You know, the top two seeds get a bye right to the semifinals. They're already in the region tournament before even playing a game in the district tournament. You have all these playing games. I don't like it as much as the soccer and other sports.
I know that for tournament purposes, it kind of muddies the water there and doesn't make it as exciting, but it makes the regular season more exciting. Is you got to take care of business. You got to handle your business. You got to win every regular season game. And for teams like Madison that go through a 3-game losing streak in their district to rattle off a couple of wins and get protected into the region tournament, I think it's a good thing. But I think you're right, Dave. It does leave some other teams out that could make a difference in the region tournament.
Well, I think the baseball tournament in general is imperfect because I believe that games should be played no less than 3 games in a series to decide. That obviously can never get done. But I believe that's what should happen. Can't happen, but so it's imperfect anyway.
So we can't even get 1 game in with it raining so much less 3-game series.
Let's just play triple headers.
I was going to say, triple header, you get to see every one of your best pitchers, and let's move on and have some fun.
I mean, how much would you love to watch Oakton and Madison from last year play not just 1 game, but play a 3-game series?
How much would you love to see Washington and Lee play Stewart 3 times in a row?
I was going to say, personally, as a sports writer, on deadline, watching 3 consecutive baseball games really could put me over the edge.
Well, you look at the Concord district, a team like Centerville, they had a big 9-6 win over Fairfax in that play-in game. But to get to the district title, they would have to beat Westfield, then they'd have to beat Chantilly, and then they're going to have to beat Oakton. 4 games in, I guess, 5 or 6 days against all the best teams in the district. They get no love at all.
But because in the regular season, they didn't earn that right to be able to have an easier schedule. And the number 1 seed, number 2 seed, they earned the right to be able to go on to the region tournament and only play 2 games.
Well, why is the regular season any less important in sports like soccer then?
It's a good point. I have no response.
I win.
Paul concedes.
1-0.
I'll tell you what, though, man. When it comes to Paul, it comes to softball. So here's what we're going to do. All 3 of us are going to walk off set. We're going to leave you here. You run some softball stuff, and you give us a call when this thing's all said and done. How do you say?
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Paul
But
Frummel with the FSN Softball Report. Paul, walk us through some of that bracketology, if you will. Who are the front runners in the Northern Region Tournament as we're getting through these district tournaments?
Well, as I just said, I wanted a triple header in baseball, so I love everything that involves a diamond. And right now, it's a great time to enjoy softball in the Northern Region because you have the Liberty District Softball Tournament, which I think is one of the most exciting tournaments in spring sports this year. You have teams like Stonebridge, Madison, Langley, McLean, Marshall, all these teams. And the semifinal match on May 16th, mark it down, a nice doubleheader, because that's going to be an incredible doubleheader to watch right now. Because we don't know who is the front runner in this district. Stonebridge has the number 1 seed, but any one of these teams can knock each other off. Now, on the flip side, in the Concord district, it is all Centerville. I mean, Centerville right now, they're 12-0 in the district. They've won. They haven't lost, as you know, BJ.
Incredible.
Yes. And you have teams like Oakton, Herndon, Westfield, all right below them at 7-5. So it's kind of a muddled mess towards the bottom, towards the middle there. But Centerville is the clear-cut favorite. And in the Patriot District, let's just say South County and leaving it there.
A muddled mess in the middle. Say that 5 times.
Well, you mentioned Centerville. Brianne Peace, we've talked a lot about here, got Concord Pitcher of the Year over in the district. They had, I think, 5 girls on the all-district team in the Concord district there.
Don't forget about, obviously, Yorktown. We talked about them almost ad nauseum. Yorktown will be the premier team within the National District will run through that like they have all season. But it'd be interesting that Patriot District, South County, also West Potomac kind of luring there with Elizabeth Crow on the mound.
And don't be surprised. You got Centerville, you got South County. Those are the two premier teams. They both use dual pitchers. Ain't no surprise there.
And you mentioned that before, and Eric, you can touch on this as well, having covered some softball this year, the dual pitching thing. As we get to the postseason now, coaches are either going to have to make a decision and say, this is my gun, I'm going with this kid on the mound, and we're going to have to win behind him, or they're going to have to stick with their theory of two kids, mix it up a little bit and see how far that can take them. The traditional way is one pitcher, that's your ace, and ride them all the way to the promised land. Paul, though, you seem to think that is certainly shifting.
Well, as Dave will point out, the pitcher has an inherent advantage.
Move the mound back.
In softball. And when you have batters so keyed in on, say, how fast Brianne Peace pitches, what movement does she use, what are her best pitches, you know the coach is going to be prepared for that. And then all of a sudden, the fifth inning, it switches out and Jessica Fairfax is pitching, and they have to rework all that timing. That really affects a team.
Well, to me, it's a fatigue issue. Yes, you're pitching 7 innings, but at the same time, when you're doing that 3 nights in a row, I'm not very good at math. That's 21 innings that you're going right there if you can't mercy rule somebody. So teams like Yorktown, Hannah Ballman, along with Bree Hannafin that have dual pitchers, I think are going to end up making some noise because they're going to spell, obviously, innings compared to just using one horse and riding that cowboy all night long.
We have had a hawk cawed on this. We've had some animal noises. We've had a cowboy ridden all the way, all night long. Dave, hit me with some more lyrics, man. This is incredible.
You got to remember that the whole two pitchers thing isn't set in stone either. You know, Brianne Peace and Jessica Farrick were used in tandem for a lot of the games for Centerville this year, but there were at least 4 or 5 times when it wasn't like that. You look at the Hernan game a couple weeks ago, 7-0 win for Centerville, and Peace went all 7 innings in that game. So if she's got it working, I think that he'll be able to stick with her for the whole game.
Peace in the Middle East. Throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care, right?
There you go.
Well, keep going, gentlemen. Throw it out there. Everything, get it all out.
That's all. Just seriously, look out for the Liberty District. It is, in all seriousness, going to be an outstanding tournament.
And McLean had a big win over Langley in their regular season finale to get the number 2 seed in that district tournament.
When you look at number 1 seed Stonebridge, number 2 seed McLean, number 3 seed Langley, number 4 seed Madison. All of these teams are top-notch teams. If you have all 4 of them playing each other in the semifinals, I'm going to be in heaven. I'm not kidding.
And it tells you how good the Liberty is right now. I've been drinking that Yorktown Kool-Aid pretty hard. Their only loss right now, a 3-2 loss to Langley, who's the 3rd seed in the Liberty District. That, to me, tells you how good and how deep the Liberty is.
Absolutely. A lot of different teams that can certainly get it done. We'll see if Madison has anything to say about that Liberty District before it's all said and done. See if the girls' team can go further than the boys' team. Hasn't happened often, but 2 of the best programs because of feeder programs. We hit back on that, as we mentioned here today. Coach Earl Brewer joined us here on this Triple Edge Lacrosse report earlier. We talked about Northern Region girls soccer, boys soccer, all that stuff, brackets, players of the year, and more can be found at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com as well as Fast Breaks. Paul Frummel discusses who will win the Liberty District. Monica Moore breaks down the Northern Region tournament and discusses Stonebridge's chances at winning a Northern Region title. You can find all this on the web. And Dave and I got a chance to talk a little football. That was a little fun. The Madison girls soccer team off on another postseason of magical runs and more. We'll see if they're able to continue that. You can check out all this video and more at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Audio, video, stories, and more. And speaking of soccer, check out Justin Creech's feature about the Herndon soccer program, Anatomy of a Season, at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Also want to thank the folks that make this show possible, and of course we're talking about our teammates at CCI Screen Printing for all your screen printing needs at 703-978-0257. They're also on the web at www.cciscreenprinting.com. Triple Edge Lacrosse, your endless summer of lacrosse for players of all ages, sizes, age levels, and more, abilities. Anyone who knows anything about lacrosse wants to go to Triple Edge Lacrosse to play lacrosse because for some way they have been able to create an endless summer of lacrosse. That defies all logic, but if you go to Triple Edge Lacrosse, the summer never ends. It's pretty fantastic at tripleedgelax.com. I want to thank you folks for joining us here on this all-new episode of the Fairfax Sports Report. And before we get out of here, guys, we're going to do it all the way through the postseason. We're going to start with baseball this week. Dave Buchenfeld, as we get through these Concord, Liberty, Patriot, and National, who's going to win the Northern Region tournament?
Got to go with Oakton.
All right, Oakton for Dave Buchenfeld. Eric Gilmore?
I'm going to stay with Oakton as well.
Westfield.
Wow. I'm going to hold my, no, I'm just kidding. I think the Cougars have a shot at winning not just the Concord, not just the region, but maybe the state. We'll see if the Cougars are able to pull it off. For everyone here and for everyone working for the Fairfax Sports Report, I'm BJ Kubarulis saying so long and tune in every week to the Fairfax Sports Report.